It's been literally over a decade since we've had smartphones in our pockets. And after a decade of smartphones and screens, I am fatigued, I am tired, and I feel disconnected. So we're in 2019, and we all know what that feeling's like with our phones. And instead of me sharing what that's like, I'm going to share a poem on how I feel about my phone. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Every morning when I wake, my phone goes straight up to my face, like makeup making me disgraced, 'cause it covers all my time alone. But it's loneliness I feel. But online I can't be that real, 'cause I gotta show my best face, my best case, and all my goals and accolades. But checking in means checking out to what this life is all about. Face to face and holding hands and hanging outside with our friends. So listen to these words I state and make them yours and yours to break. Say them with me, say them proud. Grab your phones out and sing out now. Disconnect me. Oh, disconnect me. Take my phone and shut it down. I plead these words, I plead them now. But up and down my eyes they go, scrolling on from post to post. These aimless updates make me choke, but still I choose to hold this phone. My buzzing friend, he makes me sick. He's in my hand or he's on my hip. He's growing and he's got a grip like King Kong pounding with his fists. And emergencies, they're coming from my daily feed. My calendar, it cannot breathe and my mind is collapsing at its knees. So listen to these words I state and make them yours and yours to break. Say them with me, say them now. Grab your phones out and sing out now. Disconnect me. Oh, disconnect me. Take my phone and shut it down. I plead these words. I pray them now. Disconnect me. Guys, we are in the midst of a need for a digital wellness across the globe. And I'm going to walk you through where we're at right now, and we're going to jump all the way 15 years later into the year 2034. Digital wellness is a thing, and it is a big thing. In fact, the iPhone 27Z was just released with new charging adapters, might I add, so that 26Y you got last year is no longer compatible. But the thing about it is that smartphones aren't as popular to the college students as they were in 2019. In fact, 50% of college students don't even have smartphones. They're a generation that's known as dippies or digital hippies. And after watching their parents grow up with severe depression, anxiety, exhaustion, and even high levels of suicide, they said enough is enough. We got to push back. There's a difference. Let's get out in nature. Let's feel the earth that we've been given and the air that we can breathe freely. So these dippies are on a totally different mission. And the government is also incorporating new policies that take digital wellness into account at the workplace. In fact, a Harvard Business Research study came out that said the number one variable to economic prosperity is family structure. So at 4 o'clock every day, people go home to be with their friends and family, and their devices are left at the office. They incorporated another policy, you know, the government stepping in. There's a new policy called the email abuse policy. So each individual can send only 5 emails a day, forcing you to be thoughtful with the words you put on the screen and acknowledge that what you share and what you send has to be filled with intention and clarity. And beyond that, this is big news for Android. They have come out with a phone that locks you out if you are too stressed. So if you find yourself going for one more scroll or one more text and you're feeling stressed, it knows and it shuts you out. Guys, this is the future of digital wellness in 2034. But the truth be told is I can't predict the future. And just like the great American businessman Peter Drucker, predicting the future is like driving down a country road with no headlights, looking out the back mirror. It just can't be done. But predictions have been something that have been going on for a long time. And in fact, in 1965 on the cover of Time magazine, they were talking all about the future of computers and innovation and automation. an IBM economist, Joseph Frankfin, said that by the next century, automation will take over and computers will be so helpful that we will be broken down to a 20-hour work week, and that we'll have so much free time that we will be bored. Right? That's a far cry from where we are at right now. As I began thinking about this message, I realized that technology invasion and screen addiction and all these things has been a topic that's been talked about many times on TED. In fact, there's a whole playlist that talks about the pros and cons of our digital life. But guys, I want you to step out of the current state and look into the future of digital wellness. You see physical wellness, emotional wellness, financial wellness. We understand these concepts. But what about our digital wellness? How our devices and our screens and the content we view impact our mind, body, and spirit? And how do we as a society step into the future to know that there's a better way to be connected? Because technology is not going away. We just need to get more human-centric with it. I started my journey in digital wellness over 10 years ago. I studied psychology and neuroscience at Albion College, and then came out of school, went to massage therapy school, and then I went back and got a master's in technology systems. And what I realized is that the psychology of technology is a thing. And I launched a project with a friend that allowed you to self-manage your time online. So you could set a timer, you could block websites that were time-sucking, and most importantly, you could track your mood. So back in 2007, we were trying to get people to say, hey, when I look at Facebook or when I look at a certain site, here's the mood that I feel. The funny thing is 12 years later, the emotional data that Facebook and other social media sites are mining are so rich and so valuable that at any point, at any time across the globe, it can give you the emotional state of the users on Facebook. So think about that, you guys. How does the internet and the content we view impact our emotion and mood? And how do we take shifts into the future so that digital wellness is a way of life? We teach it in our schools. We teach it in our communities. It's cool to be digitally fit. And in fact, the best TED Talk I saw in 2017 was all about how our screens are making us less happy. And Adam Alter points out that the average 24-hour workday from 2007 to 2017, for the most part, didn't change. And what I mean by that is our time at the office, our time commuting to work, our time surviving what he deems sleeping and eating, going to the grocery store, etc. Those things remain relatively fixed. But what changed was our personal space on the far left there, right? And the red indicates our screen and social media usage. So as our personal time became inundated with our screen and social media, we've lost our ability to find time for ourselves and to develop the habits and hobbies and reflections and thoughtful things about our identity and worth that makes us who we are. So Adam's work pioneered that, hey guys, we got to start paying attention to our digital wellness. And I believe that the best way to look at the future is to study our past. You ready for this? This is how people used to incorporate safety in car seats, right? Literally, a 3-year-old was strapped down there. It wasn't until 1964, after 50 years since the original Model T, that seatbelts were even incorporated into cars, which meant that you had 5 decades of the American family dream and the global dream was unsafe. Recycling in the 1980s, I remember coming home and teaching my parents in the late 80s, reduce, reuse, recycle. They looked at me like I was crazy, right? So our kids were teaching our parents ways to change the future for the better of our environment. But probably the best example to look at is the way that we used to embrace cigarettes. This is a picture of 2 nurses smoking on their break at the hospital. We smoked in airplanes, in elevators, in schools, everywhere people smoked. You had babies telling their pregnant mother, hey, just light up a Marlboro, be cool, chill out, take a break, and then breastfeed me. You had doctors telling their patients, hey, this is the best brand of cigarettes to smoke because it is less irritating. And you had dentists saying, smoke these filtered cigarettes because you know what, they're not going to stain your teeth as yellow as the competitors. So this was just a few years ago, and now if we look at our screens and nicotine, you see that there's a very close parallel. Just look at this, guys. Look at these imageries. The touchscreen generation. Toddlers being spoken to through iPads to set up as pacifiers. You have the family vacation on the beach, watching the ocean roar through Snapchat, right? As you get sand in your charging ports, right? This has got to shift. You feel it. I feel it. We know it. The future of digital wellness is coming, and it's up to us to shape it. And the only way we can do that is to begin predicting and putting energy and effort into that. So I want to show you that the folks on the screen, these are folks right now teaching, preaching, educating, inspiring all around digital wellness. You've got authors, you've got Congress people looking to do legislation around digital citizenship. You have folks incorporating health and wellness into the screen habits, just like myself. The future is coming. You've got conferences, events, nonprofits, people combining their energy to say, how do we create a more human-centered experience? And how do we make sure technology doesn't control us and shape our identity, but instead give us tools, not just temptations, to get consumed into? Right now you've got Android and Apple showing ways that you can have digital well-being with giving you controls to set timers, things that you guys might have on your phones right now. You even have the dumb phone that's just as coolly and slick designed as a smartphone. It's called the Light Phone. Anybody here have the Light Phone 1 or 2? Okay, essentially what it does is the Light Phone 2 just gives you the ability to send texts, make calls, and use GPS. So when you want to go light, if you're going away for the weekend, if you're just trying to hang out with a friend, you just grab your Light Phone and leave your smartphone at home. So people are innovating to say, how can we create a more human-centered experience, and how does digital wellness be in the forefront of our design? You've got Bose doing things like giving you audio and the ability to take calls in your sunglasses. And I know augmented reality is making its same way into your sunglasses. And even though this might seem like a step backwards, it potentially could be a step in the right direction, because it keeps your screen in your pocket and allows you to make eye contact, right? Have you heard the saying, your eyes are the gateway to your soul, right? Have you heard the saying, your forehead is the gateway to your forehead, right? And mine's rather shiny, right? I can see it. I'm glaring off you guys, right? The future is here. We have to shape it. I read an article the other day that said that personal assistants, Siri and Alexa, by the year 2021 are going to surpass the amount of people on the globe. Okay, let me say that a different way. Smartphones took 30 years to get to that kind of critical mass. Personal assistants are going to take 15 years, half the time. So the neat thing is that some people are theorizing that websites are going to go away, because you're going to get your information, you're going to get your access just through your personal assistants and whatever future artificial intelligence and bots that you're interacting with. So I'm going to leave you with this, guys. The future of digital wellness is ours to shape as a society. It's coming. As you guys can step into it, just remember that being with your family, being in community, being with your friends, making time for fun, making time for your digital wellness, which is simply just your time away from the screen, in the reality with the now, with the present, with your heartbeat and with your breath. And I'll end on this quote. It says, the purpose of thinking about the future is not to predict it, but to raise people's hopes. So I hope that I've raised your hopes for the future of digital wellness, and I thank you so much for your time today.
So today we're going to cover various topics, 2 central themes on this idea how we can model courage in the way in which we connect. So whether you're a warehouse worker, a delivery driver, a manufacturing associate, or work in the office, or a number of the other skills and positions that make up the organization, I promise you the principles that I'll teach today will allow you to strengthen the partnerships that you hold and probably find a little bit more joy vocationally in just the day-to-day of life. So let's start with a little bit of a story. I really think that part of our heart here is to create more meaningful connections. And for me, I get a chance to travel all throughout the country, sometimes 30 to 40 times a year. And whenever I come home from a trip, my wife always says, "Who did you meet on the airplane today?" Well, this particular trip, I was heading from Detroit to Mississippi on a direct flight, and I sat next to a gentleman by the name of John. Now, John, like myself, was a sole business owner, but his business was in the construction space. And after many years and even decades of a successful home building business, John had found himself, this is nearly 25 years ago that he's expressing this memory that he held of a season where he was literally out of work. And as the story goes on, he found himself with 3 young boys at home and they were out of food. His wife calls him one day and said, "John, did you get that kitchen remodel that you were hoping for?" And he said, "Honey, I didn't." And as John's beginning to reminisce of this season 25 years ago, I know he has an extra desire to teach me a lesson in his wisdom, as he knows that I'm kind of on the front end of my fatherhood and entrepreneurial endeavors. So I felt like this story was meant for me even before I knew where the story was going. So let me continue on with you. As John expresses, he comes home, no money, no food, and his wife says, "John, what are we going to do? Saturday morning is when we cook pancakes for the boys, and the boys are going to be hungry. They're 8 years old, 6 years old, and 4 years old." He said, "Let's head to bed, and we'll figure it out in the morning." In the morning, John wakes up before the kids, pours a cup of coffee, goes into the garage just to pray and putz around because he's not quite sure what he's going to do for food, let alone for work. And in the garage in the early morning on a Saturday, John finds himself being greeted by his neighbor who lived across the street, who came over just to say, "Hey, John, how you doing? Happy Saturday morning." And as they began to discuss kind of the weekend plans, the neighbor said, "Hey, John, I don't know if you know this, but my wife and I, we're moving out today. It's been 18 years in the community, fantastic living by you the whole time. However, it's time to go south to Florida. And we just wanted to say your family's been fantastic to live next to. Good luck. And just wanted to say goodbye before we pressed out." With the moving van idling in the driveway, John, who's distracted from his need for food and money, shakes the neighbor's hand kind of half-heartedly, says, "Good luck to you." And his neighbor goes to walk back across the street. And as soon as he gets to the edge of his driveway, he turns around and he says, "Hey, John, I forgot to mention, we have 2 weeks worth of groceries in the fridge and they're going to spoil and we can't take them with us. Do you guys need them?" And as John's telling me the story on an airplane and 30,000 feet up in the air, he begins to cry right there, recalling this memory from 25 years ago. John looks at his neighbor and says, Yeah, we need the groceries." He woke his boys up. He said, "Boys, get out of bed, grab some coolers and get your butts across the street to get some food to put in our fridge." His boys were never the wiser that they didn't have food that weekend. And thankfully, John's vocational kind of endeavors turned himself around and business picked back up. And I shared that story for 2 reasons. One, because it's a great testimony on what happens when we rely on our neighbors. And I think metaphorically, our neighbors oftentimes are the people we work with, the partners we have, and the homes that we get a chance to do work in. So I want to use this idea of a neighbor and transition into an exercise called Hello Neighbor. Now, the way that this works is I'm going to share a statement, and if you agree with the statement, you simply say Hello Neighbor. So as you tune in, whether in the chat box or whether just in your own internal dialogue, play along, because I know there's thousands of you listening to this message today, and I'd wager that a lot of you have more in common than you know. So let's try this out for size. I prefer coffee over tea. Hello, neighbor. I can hear many of you with your cup of coffee in hand saying, "That's me. I prefer coffee over tea." All right, let's try a few more. I prefer dogs over cats. Okay. I'm sensing a few cat people in the audience looking at me, giving me kind of a little bit of an eye of judgment here. So for those folks, I prefer cats over dogs. Or who knows, maybe I prefer no animals at all. Let me try a few more deeper ones, if you will. I grew up in a home with divorced parents. hello neighbor, for those that can connect with that. I grew up in a home that had alcoholism in it. And I'll try one more to see the other neighbors out here. I believe the Detroit Lions are going to win the Super Bowl in 2026. Hello, neighbor? Now, I hope I made a few friends along the way, but I have to stick to my Detroit Lions roots. So whether you like them or love them, that's beyond the point. I hope that you saw in this exercise that there's actually more in common than we hold than just our job titles or how many years we worked at the organization. And I think that's the heart of what I want to teach you today is how can we create more meaningful connections and how can we use courage as a conduit to get there? Now, as I mentioned before, I traveled all throughout the country speaking on the idea of meaningful connections create beautiful partnerships, and those beautiful partnerships create sustainable organizations. And you all know that as you're celebrating this 100th year milestone. Aside from my professional kind of accomplishments, what's most near and dear to my heart is my personal accomplishments. I have married for 13 years. I have 2 kids, 3 dogs, and 1 bunny. Please don't ask how or why the dogs and the bunnies outnumber or at least equally match the humans in our home. But they truly are the reason for the work that I get to do. And I've learned so many lessons as both a parent, as a husband, and as a father that I think blend themselves into the organizational experiences I've had. And I believe that you all are one great big family. And when we have the opportunity to learn to listen to each other, we oftentimes can get more understanding and seek clarity in what it is people are trying to say and express. And I believe truly the art of listening is a gift to connection. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Oftentimes that's a significant sign of maybe listening more than talking less. It's hard to do, but oftentimes when we find ourselves listening from a place of what are they saying, what am I sensing, and what am I feeling, it often allows us to understand what are they thinking. It's also known as your EQ, your IQ, and your BQ. Your body intelligence, what is my body showing? My EQ, my emotional intelligence, and my IQ, my intellectual intelligence. But all that aside, I think the beauty of connecting comes in many different forms and sizes. And I want to look at the root word of connection, which means con. In its earliest definition, con is a Latin word that means unity or be together. So as we think about connecting with our employees and our partners in the field and outside of the field, we see that we have a chance to be unified in how we connect. So as we begin to do that, I want to introduce what I think the number one distraction to fostering meaningful connections is. Can you guess what the number one distraction for fostering meaningful connections? Will you throw me my phone there? Let me guess. Spoiler alert. It's the phone. I tell you, these digital devices are a huge gift, but they oftentimes can find ourselves being doubly distracted and equally distracted as we're trying to maintain our connection to one another and let alone listen to each other. So I like to often invite the idea if your phone allows you to connect with those outside of you, how do you use your heart to connect with those right in front of you? And when we look down at our phones, we find ourselves staring at our screens. I like to say our eyes are the gateway to our soul, and our forehead, well, it's the gateway to our forehead. So as we begin to process more with our IQ, EQ, BQ on how we connect, I just want to encourage you that use these devices as tools. Don't let them tempt you from distracting yourself from the person that's right in front of you. One last statistic for you to consider. We spend literally 4.5 hours on our phones outside of the workplace. So that means our free time, our recreational time. Did you know that if our fingers were on a treadmill, we would travel 5 miles of distance a day? Now, I share that because I believe one of the best ways that we can stay healthy in our physical and emotional state that allows us to better connect is to walk. So if you have the ability to move your body or walk more, I'm always encouraging people when you're feeling disconnected and you need to get outside and take a break, I want to encourage you to walk. So in order to do that, for those that have the ability to get some fresh air, whether you can walk or whether you just want to be able to move your body outside. That allows you to better connect and physically take a break or mentally take a break from what's disturbing you and physically get into your own body. Now, I just want to share up 5 ways that you can consider improving your digital wellness, because I believe the direct correlation to our digital health impacts our physical health and the way in which we connect socially. So if you look at your digital calories as something that you consume, then you can consider sometimes we consume high saturated, digitally bloated news headlines or social media feeds that make us feel kind of digitally bloated. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining a balance between our analog and digital life. So I want to offer up a couple ways that you can consider improving your digital wellness. First and foremost, take a digital fast 1 hour a day. Make eye contact when talking. We've talked about how that impacts our ability to listen and to better understand. You could maybe go to bed 1 hour without technology and see how much better you can sleep throughout the night. Or you could go phone free with your meals, or a number of other things that allow you just to make sure that you're connecting with those that are right in front of you. Lastly, I just want to share that when you're feeling overwhelmed, and a lot of research and statistics show that there's so many digital demands and physical demands to our day, whether we're in the field or in the office, that sometimes make us just feel anxious and overwhelmed. 2 of the dangers of becoming disconnected. So I want to give you an acronym called HALT. And HALT stands for, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? If you can say yes to 1 or more of those things, stop, which is the German word for halt, and reset. Grab a snack, express your anger or frustration. If you're lonely, phone a friend, call a coworker, and if you're tired, see if you can just maybe rest your eyes or your mind for a minute. In the busyness of the day-to-day, I want to teach you a technique called conscious breathing. And conscious breathing is often taught in school systems where they're trying to encourage the students who are socially, emotionally upset to calm themselves and go from their upstairs brain, fear and flight and frustration, to their downstairs brain, calming, collaboration, and just a sense of peace. So here they are, in no particular order. There's the star breath. You breathe in like a star and breathe out. There's the balloon. You breathe in and you breathe back out. There's the faucets for maybe when you're frustrated, the hot and the cold. You breathe in and you let the water flow as you breathe out. And lastly, and I saved it for last because it's the hardest, but it's the pretzel. You turn your arms, you breathe in, and you unwind yourself. Now, those techniques allow your brain and your breath to align and to calm yourself down so you can better connect with what's going on. They originally were intended for maybe a youth-filled audience in schools, but I promise you that as adults, our breath works the same way. So as you consider ways that you're continuing to encourage healthy connections, just know that brain breaks using our breath are a great way to get there. One other thing that I wanted to offer up to you is what's called a turn down technique. When we are overwhelmed, when we're feeling anxious or stressed, we're less likely to be present-minded. We are half listening. And when we're half listening, sometimes the information that somebody's telling us goes in one ear and out the other. So one of the things that we can do is called a turn down technique. And if you can remember the movie Back to the Future, and you can picture Marty McFly going into the opening scene of Back to the Future 1, and he's turning up all of the volume knobs in Doc's lab, and he grabs that guitar, and he takes that shiny guitar pick, and he hammers down on the strings, and the guitar reverberates, and the sound just blasts him back into the bookshelf, and he finds himself on his derriere. Now, I believe that the way that our thoughts function when we're overwhelmed is similar to the volume of that speaker that blasted Marty McFly back to the bookshelf. So turn-down techniques allow you to focus on moving your body, moving your mind, and doing it in a little bit of fashion. A little bit of time, I should say. So whether you have just a quick 5-minute break in between jobs, or whether you're in the van or the truck and you feel like you just need to kind of reset, a turn-down technique would allow you to do that. And they include things like walking, writing down lists, phoning a friend, having a cup of coffee, writing in a journal, making a to-do list, just putting on your favorite playlist in your vehicle and listening to music that lifts you up. These things are physical, fast, easy, flexible, fun, and free, and they allow you to turn down the volume so you can better listen and reset.